I thought she was loyal. She thought she was careful. Neither of us was right. My name is Alexander Ashford, and I run a vintage car restoration shop in Millbrook, a town where everyone knows everyone else's business. Or so I believed until Tuesday morning when I discovered my wife Victoria had been conducting her own private enterprise right under my nose. The discovery happened by accident. Victoria had rushed off to her real estate office, leaving her laptop open on our kitchen counter. I was grabbing coffee before heading to the shop when I noticed the screen displaying what looked like a spreadsheet. Not unusual for Victoria. She organized everything from grocery lists to client appointments with mathematical precision. But this wasn't about house showings or commission calculations. The header read, Personal Schedule, VA. Below that, a meticulously organized chart with names, days, times, and locations. Color-coded tabs indicated different categories of meetings. Monday through Sunday, blocked out in neat segments. 3 coworkers from her real estate firm, 2 neighbors from our street, 1 personal trainer from the gym downtown, all scheduled like business appointments, rotating with clockwork efficiency. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Victoria had organized her affairs with the same attention to detail she applied to everything else in her life. Monday afternoons with Derek Mills, her fitness trainer, Tuesday lunches with Tom Bradley from next door, Wednesday evenings with James Peterson from her office. The pattern continued through the week, each man assigned specific time slots. The notes column contained additional information that made my stomach churn. Preferences, availability windows, even ratings on performance and discretion levels. She had turned infidelity into a science project. I grabbed my phone and photographed everything. The main schedule, the detailed notes, the backup calendar showing alternative arrangements when conflicts arose. Victoria's organizational skills had created a perfect evidence trail of her systematic betrayal. After saving the images to a secure folder, I closed the laptop and finished my coffee. My hands remained steady, which surprised me. Perhaps shock had numbed the initial emotional response, or maybe 15 years of marriage had prepared me for this possibility without my conscious awareness. At the shop, I went through the motions of my workday. Mrs. Henderson dropped off her husband's 1967 Mustang for brake work. The Johnson twins brought their father's Corvette for an engine tune-up. Normal Tuesday business in a town where classic cars represented both hobby and investment. But my mind kept returning to that spreadsheet. The clinical efficiency of Victoria's deception impressed me despite the circumstances. She had identified 6 different men, assessed their schedules and preferences, then created a rotation system that maximized her opportunities while minimizing detection risks. Each man believed he was her only secret. Each thought their affair was special, unique, worth the risk of destroying their marriages and reputations. Victoria had played them against each other without any of them realizing the scope of her operation. By closing time, I had formed the outline of a plan. If Victoria could organize her betrayals with spreadsheet precision, I could organize my response with equal attention to detail. Research phase began that evening. While Victoria attended what she claimed was a client appreciation dinner, I investigated each name from her list. Derek Mills, married to Amanda, 2 teenage children. Tom Bradley, our neighbor, engaged to Lisa Chen, who worked at the bank. James Peterson, divorced but dating Rebecca Walsh from the school district. The pattern continued through all 6 men. Each had significant relationships that would suffer when the truth emerged. Each had reputations and social standing that depended on maintaining their current image as faithful partners and responsible community members. Victoria returned home around 11, kissing my cheek and mentioning how boring the dinner had been. She complained about the food, the speeches, the other agents who attended. Her performance was flawless, the devoted wife sharing her evening's experiences with her husband. "How was your day?" she asked, settling into bed beside me. "Productive," I replied. "Got a lot accomplished." She smiled and turned off her bedside lamp. Within minutes, Her breathing had settled into the rhythm of sleep. I lay awake for hours, refining my plan and considering the most effective approach to address her systematic deception. The next morning brought another opportunity for intelligence gathering. Victoria's phone buzzed with text messages while she showered. I glanced at the screen and saw notifications from Derek, Tom, and James, all confirming various appointments and arrangements. Her confidence in her operational security had made her careless about basic precautions. She left digital evidence scattered across multiple devices and platforms, apparently believing I was too trusting or too stupid to notice the signs. That assumption would prove costly. Wednesday morning brought rain and revelation. Victoria left early for what she described as a property inspection in the next county, kissing me goodbye with the same casual affection she had shown every morning for 15 years. I watched her drive away, then began phase 2 of my investigation. Tom Bradley lived 3 houses down from us on Maple Street. His fiancée Lisa worked at First National Bank and left for her job precisely at 8:30 every morning. Their routine was as predictable as Victoria's scheduling system. I walked down to Tom's house under the pretense of borrowing his leaf blower. He answered the door in a bathrobe, hair disheveled, clearly having just woken up. "Morning, Tom. Sorry to bother you so early, but I wanted to catch you before work." He glanced nervously toward his driveway, where Lisa's car was conspicuously absent. "What can I do for you, Alex?" "Wondering if I could borrow your leaf blower this weekend. Got a big cleanup project planned." "Sure, no problem. I'll bring it over Saturday morning." His eagerness to end the conversation confirmed what I already suspected. Tom was expecting Victoria's Tuesday visit and didn't want neighbors witnessing her arrival. The irony of his concern for discretion wasn't lost on me. At the shop, I called Derek Mills's gym and inquired about personal training sessions. The receptionist helpfully explained their scheduling system, mentioning that Derek typically reserved Monday afternoons for private clients who preferred discretion. She offered to book me an appointment, but I declined, claiming I needed to check my calendar first. James Peterson proved equally easy to investigate. His real estate office shared a building with the coffee shop where I occasionally grabbed lunch. A casual conversation with the barista revealed that James frequently reserved their back corner table on Wednesday evenings, always for important client meetings that required privacy. Each man had developed his own system for concealing his involvement with Victoria. Each believed his precautions were sufficient to prevent discovery. None had considered that their careful arrangements might form a pattern visible to someone with the complete picture. By Thursday, I had documented the full scope of Victoria's operation. 6 men, 6 different venues, 6 separate deception strategies, all coordinated through her master schedule. The organizational complexity was impressive, even admirable in its thoroughness. But Thursday also brought an unexpected discovery that changed everything. Victoria's laptop was open again when I returned from lunch. This time the screen displayed an email conversation between Victoria and her sister Monica, who lived 2 towns over. The subject line read, "Family Dinner Plans." I scrolled through their exchange and found references to the boys and keeping Alex busy and making sure everyone stays on schedule. Monica wasn't just aware of Victoria's activities. She was actively helping coordinate them. The emails revealed that Monica had suggested several of Victoria's targets, including Derek Mills, whom she had met at a regional business conference. She had also provided alibis for Victoria's absences, covering for her with elaborate stories about family emergencies and sister bonding time. Most disturbing was Monica's final message. "Remember, if Alex ever gets suspicious, we stick to the story. Family loyalty above everything else. Besides, what he doesn't know won't hurt him." Victoria had replied with a laughing emoji and the words, "Alex is too trusting to figure anything out. He still believes I'm working late when I'm with the boys." Their casual dismissal of my intelligence and awareness sparked something deeper than anger. They had transformed my marriage into a joke, my trust into a character flaw, my devotion into evidence of stupidity. That evening, Victoria announced she was planning a dinner party for the following Saturday. "I thought it would be nice to have some of our friends over," she said, pulling out her notebook to start planning. "Maybe invite Tom and Lisa from down the street and some people from the office." "Sounds great," I replied. "Who else were you thinking?" She rattled off a list that included Derek Mills and his wife Amanda, James Peterson and his girlfriend Rebecca, plus several other names I recognized from her spreadsheet. Victoria was planning to bring her targets and their partners together in our home, apparently confident that none of them would reveal their connections to her. "What about Monica?" I asked. "Should we invite your sister?" Victoria's face brightened. "That's a wonderful idea. She loves meeting new people, and it's been too long since we've all gotten together." I nodded and offered to help with the preparations. Victoria seemed delighted by my enthusiasm, interpreting it as evidence that her deceptions remained undetected. She began planning the menu, the seating arrangements, the timing of each course with the same methodical approach she applied to everything else. Over the next 2 days, I helped Victoria prepare for what she believed would be a pleasant social gathering. I suggested wine pairings, offered to handle the invitations, even recommended seating arrangements that would ensure optimal interaction between guests. Victoria accepted all my suggestions, pleased by my sudden interest in entertaining. She had no idea that I was designing the perfect stage for her public exposure. Friday evening, I made one final addition to the guest list. I called Monica and personally invited her to join us, mentioning how much Victoria was looking forward to seeing her. "I wouldn't miss it," Monica replied. "Victoria's told me so much about your friends. I'm excited to finally meet everyone." Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and perfect weather for outdoor dining. Victoria spent the day preparing elaborate dishes, arranging flowers, and setting our table for 14 guests. Her excitement was genuine. She truly believed the evening would be a social triumph. I spent the day making my own preparations, printing copies of the spreadsheet evidence, preparing brief summaries of each affair for the affected partners, organizing the material for maximum impact and clarity. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. Victoria had created the perfect setting for a dinner party. I had created the perfect setting for justice. Saturday evening brought our guests in waves. Tom and Lisa arrived first, followed by Derek and Amanda Mills. James Peterson came with Rebecca Walsh, both dressed as if attending a formal business dinner. The remaining couples from Victoria's office filled out the group, creating exactly the social gathering she had envisioned. Victoria played the perfect hostess, greeting each couple with warmth and ensuring everyone felt welcome. She introduced guests to each other, facilitated conversations, and managed the evening's flow with her characteristic attention to detail. Monica arrived fashionably late, embracing Victoria with theatrical enthusiasm before making rounds to meet everyone. Her performance was flawless, the devoted sister supporting her beloved siblings' social ambitions. I watched the interactions with fascination. Derek Mills shook hands with Tom Bradley, 2 men who had never met, but shared an intimate connection through Victoria. James Peterson complimented Amanda Mills on her dress, unaware that her husband had been sharing detailed accounts of their encounters with his wife. The men had positioned themselves strategically around the table, each maintaining careful distance from Victoria to avoid arousing suspicion. Their wives and girlfriends chatted pleasantly, completely unaware of the connections binding their partners to our hostess. Dinner proceeded smoothly through the appetizer and salad courses. Victoria had outdone herself with the menu: herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables, homemade bread, and wine selections that perfectly complemented each dish. Our guests praised her culinary skills and expressed appreciation for the invitation. Conversation flowed naturally across multiple topics: real estate market trends, local politics, upcoming community events, vacation plans. The atmosphere was relaxed and convivial, exactly what Victoria had hoped to achieve. I participated in the discussions while observing the subtle dynamics playing out around the table. Derek Mills kept checking his phone, probably hoping for a message from Victoria about their next appointment. Tom Bradley complimented the wine selection, perhaps remembering similar bottles from their Tuesday encounters. James Peterson mentioned a new restaurant he wanted to try, likely planning to suggest it for his next Wednesday evening with Victoria. None of them suspected that their careful compartmentalization was about to collapse. As we finished the main course, Victoria rose to clear plates and prepare for dessert service. She moved around the table with practiced efficiency, playing the gracious hostess role to perfection. Several guests offered to help, but she insisted on handling everything herself. "Before we move to dessert," I announced, standing and tapping my wine glass to get everyone's attention, "I'd like to share something with everyone here tonight." The table quieted, faces turning toward me with polite interest. Victoria paused in her plate clearing, smiling expectantly. She probably assumed I was going to thank our guests or make some toast celebrating the successful evening. "My wife Victoria is an incredibly organized person," I began, maintaining a conversational tone. "She approaches everything in her life with systematic precision. Her work, her social calendar, even her personal relationships." Nods and murmurs of agreement came from around the table. Everyone had witnessed Victoria's organizational skills in action, whether through her real estate work or tonight's dinner preparation. In fact, she's so organized that she maintains detailed spreadsheets for all her important activities. I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew a stack of printed pages. "I thought you might find her latest project interesting." Victoria's smile faltered slightly, confusion replacing her earlier confidence. She set down the plates she was holding and moved closer to see what I was distributing. I handed each wife and girlfriend a copy of Victoria's scheduling spreadsheet, complete with color coding, detailed notes, and performance ratings. The men received copies as well, along with their partners' shocked expressions as comprehension dawned. Silence fell over the table as people processed what they were reading. Amanda Mills was the first to speak, her voice rising with each word. "Derek, what is this? Why is your name on here with days and times?" Derek grabbed the paper from her hands, his face draining of color as he recognized the evidence of his systematic deception. "Amanda, I can explain." "Explain what?" Lisa Chen interrupted, staring at Tom Bradley with growing fury. "Explain why you're scheduled for Tuesday lunches with our hostess. Explain why there are notes about your preferences and availability." The revelation hit all 6 couples simultaneously. Voices rose in accusation and denial. Wine glasses were knocked over, chairs scraped against the floor as people stood to confront their partners. The elegant dinner party dissolved into chaos within minutes. Victoria stood frozen at the head of the table, watching her carefully constructed world collapse around her. Her face cycled through confusion, realization, and panic as she understood the scope of her exposure. Monica jumped up from her seat, attempting to restore order. "Everyone calm down. There's obviously been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I replied calmly, producing another set of documents. "These are printouts of your email conversations with Victoria, Monica, the ones where you helped coordinate schedules and provided alibis. Would you like me to read them aloud?" Monica's face went pale as she realized her own involvement had been documented. The sister who had enabled Victoria's deceptions was now equally exposed to the consequences. Rebecca Walsh threw her napkin on the table and stood to leave. "James, we're done. Don't call me. Don't come by my house. Don't even look in my direction when you see me around town." Her departure triggered an exodus. One by one, the betrayed partners gathered their belongings and left, some in tears, others in rage, all united in their disgust for the systematic deception they had discovered. The men attempted various explanations and justifications, but the evidence was too comprehensive to deny or minimize. Victoria's meticulous record-keeping had created an unassailable case against all of them. Within 30 minutes, our house was empty except for Victoria, Monica, and myself. The elaborate dinner lay abandoned on the table, wine stains marking the white tablecloth, broken glass scattered on the floor. Victoria finally found her voice. "Alex, how could you do this? You've ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything," I replied, beginning to clear the debris from our destroyed dinner party. "I just organized the truth as efficiently as you organized your lies." Sunday morning brought silence and consequences. Victoria had spent the night in our guest room, while Monica slept on the living room couch. Both women seemed stunned by the complete collapse of their carefully maintained deceptions. I made coffee and breakfast for three, maintaining the domestic routines that had structured our marriage for 15 years. The normalcy felt surreal after the previous evening's revelations, but I found comfort in the familiar patterns of morning preparation. Victoria emerged from the guest room looking exhausted and defeated. Her usual morning routine of shower, makeup, and carefully selected outfit had been abandoned in favor of the same clothes she had worn to our disastrous dinner party. "We need to talk," she said, accepting the coffee I offered without meeting my eyes. "I'm listening," I replied, settling into my usual chair at our kitchen table. Monica joined us, still wearing her party dress but now wrinkled and stained from sleeping on the couch. She looked between Victoria and me, as if trying to determine the best strategy for damage control. "Alex, I know you're angry," Victoria began, "but destroying 6 relationships in one evening was cruel and unnecessary. You could have handled this privately." Her attempt to claim moral high ground was impressive in its audacity. She had systematically betrayed our marriage with 6 different men, enlisted her sister as an accomplice, and maintained the deception for months, but somehow I was the cruel one for exposing the truth. "How long?" I asked, ignoring her accusation. Victoria stared into her coffee cup. "It started about 8 months ago. Derek was just supposed to be a one-time thing, but then opportunities with the others presented themselves, and I thought—" "You thought you could manage them all simultaneously without consequences?" She nodded reluctantly. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I was careful about scheduling and discretion. Nobody was supposed to find out." Monica leaned forward, finally entering the conversation. "Victoria made mistakes, but she's still your wife. Families work through problems together. This public humiliation wasn't necessary." I turned my attention to Victoria's sister, the woman who had enabled and encouraged every aspect of this betrayal. "Monica, you helped coordinate these affairs. You provided alibis and suggestions. You're hardly in a position to lecture about family loyalty." Her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. I was supporting my sister through a difficult time in her marriage. She felt neglected and unappreciated. I thought if she could find some happiness elsewhere. "You thought you could help her systematically cheat on her husband without consequences." The conversation continued for another hour, cycling through justifications, accusations, and attempts at negotiation. Victoria wanted to discuss counseling and reconciliation. Monica pushed for family unity and forgiveness. Both seemed to believe that the previous evening's exposure was a temporary setback rather than a permanent ending. I listened to their arguments while mentally reviewing the practical steps necessary to dissolve a 15-year marriage. Legal consultation, asset division, living arrangements, social adjustments. The logistics would be complex, but the decision was simple. By Monday morning, Victoria's professional consequences had begun manifesting. Her real estate office received calls from clients who had attended our dinner party or heard about the evening's revelations through Millbrook's efficient gossip network. Several deals fell through as clients requested different agents. Derek Mills lost 3 personal training clients before noon. Tom Bradley called in sick to his construction job, probably to avoid facing coworkers who had heard about his exposure. James Peterson's real estate listings were suddenly being handled by other agents in his firm. The men who had participated in Victoria's systematic deception were discovering that small-town scandals carry professional as well as personal costs. Their reputations for reliability and trustworthiness had been permanently damaged by the revelation of their coordinated infidelity. Victoria spent Monday making phone calls, attempting to salvage her business relationships and social standing. She offered explanations, apologies, and promises of changed behavior, but the comprehensive nature of her deceptions made forgiveness unlikely. Monica returned to her own town that afternoon, her role as enabler and co-conspirator having been thoroughly exposed. Her parting words to Victoria were about giving things time to settle down and letting people forget, as if systematic betrayal was a minor social misstep rather than a fundamental character revelation. Tuesday brought legal consultations and paperwork. I met with an attorney to discuss divorce proceedings, asset protection, and timeline expectations. The process would take several months to complete, but the outcome was inevitable. Victoria made one final attempt at reconciliation that evening, appearing in our kitchen as I prepared a simple dinner for one. She had returned to her usual appearance standards, showered, dressed professionally, makeup carefully applied, as if external presentation could restore internal credibility. "Alex, I know I made terrible mistakes, but we can work through this. 15 years of marriage has to count for something." I continued preparing my meal, considering her words carefully before responding. "Victoria, you didn't make mistakes. You made deliberate choices over 8 months. You planned, scheduled, and executed a systematic betrayal of our marriage. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle choice." She tried several more approaches, appeals to our shared history, promises of complete transparency, offers of counseling and behavior modification. All were variations on the same theme, the belief that consequences could be negotiated away through sufficient persuasion. But some actions create permanent changes that cannot be undone through apology or adjustment. Victoria's spreadsheet precision in organizing her deceptions had also created spreadsheet clarity about the impossibility of reconciliation. Wednesday morning, she moved out of our house and into a furnished apartment across town. The transition was remarkably efficient, perhaps because organizational skills transfer readily from affair coordination to household dissolution. I kept the house, the shop, and the satisfaction of having responded to systematic betrayal with systematic justice. Victoria kept her remaining real estate clients, her damaged reputation, and the knowledge that her own meticulous record-keeping had engineered her downfall. The dinner party had lasted 3 hours. The consequences would last considerably longer. 3 weeks after our dinner party, Millbrook had settled into its new social equilibrium. The scandal had provided enough gossip to fuel conversations through the end of summer, but the initial shock had faded into accepted reality. Derek Mills and Amanda were pursuing divorce proceedings. Amanda had filed papers within days of discovering the systematic nature of his deception, citing irreconcilable differences and breach of trust. Derek's personal training business had lost half its clientele, forcing him to consider relocating to a town where his reputation hadn't been destroyed by spreadsheet evidence. Tom Bradley and Lisa Chen had ended their engagement immediately. Lisa moved back to her parents' house and requested a transfer to a different branch of First National Bank. Tom remained in his house on Maple Street, but our neighborly relationship had obviously concluded. We nodded politely when our paths crossed, but the casual friendship built over several years had been permanently severed. James Peterson lost his girlfriend and several professional opportunities when Rebecca Walsh shared the story with her colleagues at the school district. Word spread quickly through the interconnected network of local government employees, damaging his reputation among potential clients who valued discretion and trustworthiness in their real estate transactions. The other 3 men from Victoria's schedule faced similar consequences: damaged relationships, lost business opportunities, and social ostracism proportionate to their involvement in the systematic deception. Small towns have long memories for betrayals, especially ones documented with such thorough precision. Victoria struggled to rebuild her real estate career. Several clients had terminated their contracts after learning about her personal conduct, apparently concluding that someone who systematically deceived her husband might also deceive them in business dealings. She was forced to take a position with a different firm in the next county, extending her commute but providing some distance from the immediate fallout. Monica's role as enabler and co-conspirator had also become public knowledge, damaging her own reputation in her hometown. Family loyalty was generally respected, but actively coordinating infidelity crossed the line from support into participation. Her marriage faced new stresses as her husband questioned what other deceptions she might have helped facilitate. I maintained my vintage car restoration business without interruption. If anything, the scandal had increased my local reputation as someone who addressed problems directly and effectively. Several new clients mentioned their appreciation for straight dealing and honest communication when bringing their vehicles to my shop. The divorce proceedings moved forward with minimal conflict. Victoria's systematic documentation of her affairs had eliminated any possibility of disputing the grounds for dissolution. Asset division was straightforward since we had maintained separate business interests throughout our marriage. Our house sold within 2 months to a young couple relocating from the city. They appreciated the updated kitchen where Victoria had prepared our final dinner party, unaware of the dramatic events that had unfolded around the dining room table they were purchasing along with the other furnishings. I bought a smaller place on the other side of town, closer to my shop and farther from the memories embedded in our former neighborhood. The new house needed work, providing me with renovation projects to occupy evenings and weekends previously spent in Victoria's company. By late summer, the immediate crisis had resolved into permanent changes. 6 marriages and relationships had ended. Multiple careers had been damaged or redirected. Social circles had been redrawn to exclude the participants in Victoria's systematic deception. Victoria herself had become a cautionary tale about the consequences of betrayal in small communities. Her story was told and retold, usually with emphasis on the spreadsheet organization that had made her downfall both inevitable and complete. The moral lessons were clear and frequently discussed. Deception requires constant energy to maintain. Systematic betrayal creates systematic vulnerability, and meticulous record-keeping can become evidence for your own prosecution. I occasionally encountered Victoria around town during the months following our divorce. She had lost weight and seemed diminished somehow, as if the collapse of her carefully managed deceptions had also collapsed her confidence in her ability to control outcomes through planning and organization. Our interactions were polite but minimal. There was nothing left to discuss. She had made her choices with full awareness of the risks involved. I had responded to those choices with equal deliberation and planning. The consequences belonged to both of us, but the responsibility belonged entirely to her. 1 year after our dinner party, I received a wedding invitation from Amanda Mills. She was marrying a teacher from the next town over, someone who had no connection to the scandal that had ended her previous relationship. The invitation included a handwritten note thanking me for having the courage to tell the truth when it mattered. I attended the ceremony and reception, joining other community members in celebrating Amanda's fresh start. The event felt like a conclusion to the story that had begun with Victoria's spreadsheet and ended with our disastrous dinner party. During the reception, I overheard conversations about Victoria, who had apparently moved to a different state to escape the lingering effects of her local reputation. Monica had also relocated, seeking opportunities in a community where her role in the scandal was unknown. The 6 men had pursued various strategies for rebuilding their lives. Some had left town, others had attempted local reconciliation with mixed success. All had learned that systematic deception carries systematic consequences, and that small-town scandals have long-lasting effects on personal and professional opportunities. I drove home from the wedding reception, feeling satisfied with the resolution of events that had begun with such betrayal and chaos. Victoria had thought she could organize infidelity like a business project. She had thought her careful planning would prevent discovery and consequences. Both assumptions had proven incorrect. Her systematic approach to deception had created systematic evidence for her exposure. Her confidence in her organizational skills had blinded her to the possibility that others could organize responses with equal effectiveness. The dinner party had lasted one evening. The justice had lasted much longer. I thought she was loyal. She thought she was careful. Neither of us was right. But in the end, only one of us had learned to organize consequences as efficiently as we had organized deceptions. The spreadsheet was gone, but the lessons remained.